may not be suitable for all audiences.
We have one of these, these faces.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Scholars, welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. I'm a professional artist and master educator who attempts to provide you with the best in art historical content. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe, do all those things, especially if you haven't done those things already. Thank you.
Go on. Say it. Whatever you're thinking.
One of the early Dada surrealists was an individual by the name of Kurt Schwitters. Today, we're going to jump into his life story, as you know, because you clicked on the video. So let's go ahead and jump on in. There are many interesting artists out there, but there are none more interesting and peculiar than Kurt Schwitters. As an only child to a gentleman, Edward Schwitters, who owned a ladies' clothing shop with his wife, Harriet, they ran that business so well that they ended up selling it and reinvested that into real estate that allowed the family and Kurt from a very young age and throughout his life to live off of that passive income, which basically afforded Kurt Schwitters the ability to make the art that he made. As time passed, he would become more and more interested in art and end up studying art at the Dresden Academy along with other German artists such as Otto Dix and George Gross. Early on in his career, from about 1909 until about 1915, he was considered a bit of a post-impressionist, becoming more expressionist and experimenting with a little bit of cubism as World War I would kind of come into play. Epilepsy was what kept Kurt Schwitters out of World War I until late in the war when they were basically putting anyone in. And so the last year and a half of World War I, he would work in a factory outside of Hanover. This work as a drafter would definitely influence his professional work moving forward. This inspired his metaphorical connections between machines and human activities, and he even once said, "In the war I discovered my love for the wheel and realized that machines are abstractions of the human spirit."
Just a little middle-aged humor. Right, Trickin' Buddy?
Absolutely.
In 1915, he would get married to his wife, Helma, who was very supporting of his work, and as time progressed to about 1918, largely due to the economic, the political, the military collapse of Germany that followed World War I, his work would drastically change. As most of us probably know, World War I took place from July the 28th, 1914 until November the 11th, 1918. For the rest of his life, he would continue to work in this very interesting sort of way that he began to develop at this time. However, it was in 1919 that he asked to join the Berlin Dada group, but allegedly he was rejected from that group because his ties to expressionism and a magazine called Der Strom were somewhat outside what this particular group of Dada artists wanted to have in their group, and so he was pretty much on the outside of that.
I'm ready for a beer and a bratwurst. What about it, huh?
Whoa, Mean Gene, hold on, Daddy. I just rounded the corner and I turned around and you were behind me. Back to work, Jack.
In 1922, a series of Dada performances was organized in the Netherlands. Kurt Schwitters was one who participated in that performance. This was around the time that he developed his psychological collages of Murs. In his mind, everything was Murs. This is a very Dada sort of idea, by the way. His life was Murs. His art was Murs. Everything was Murs. It was an all-inclusive, all-encompassing sort of idea, which is very bizarre, but yet very Dada. This was his attempt to make coherent sense of his world He would use fragments of found objects that often made a commentary on current events and other things in his life, because in that work there was this element of autobiography, there was an element of graphic design, there were bus tickets and items that he got from friends and picked up along the street that reminded him of places and for instances and meetings and all those sorts of things that we go through in our everyday lives, but he was collecting them to embed into his artworks. Fragments of newspapers and garbage on the ground, things that he was just somewhat coming across, became the media for his artworks. He used the term MERS as a fundamental compositional structure that encompassed everything, but he kind of phased away from that after 1931, but it still existed in his lexicon of vocabulary, but maybe not quite as used outwardly as he had done previously.
Well, my, they must be using some awfully big words on the Cartoon Network.
In the 1920s and 1930s, the work of Kurt Schwitters became a lot less expressionist, although these elements were always present in his work. His work was evolving to become even more modern. So what exactly is modern art? Well, this is a series of genres that begin around the mid-19th century, about 1860, 1870, and it goes all the way through into the mid to late 1960s. And at any rate, these genres would challenge Western standards of art and include various new forms of expression, including Impressionism, Expressionism, Cubism, Fauvism, Dadaism, Surrealism, and even more than that. But I think you get the idea. The work of Kurt Schwitters was less about politics, and in the late 1920s, he had joined with the German Work Federation, which is an association of artists and architects and designers and those sorts of folks that would develop a more modern style that would eventually be responsible for the design school like the Bauhaus, which was a huge influence to Western architectural and furniture design, artwork, and so much more, that was eventually shut down by the Nazis just before World War II.
Are you still a Nazi?
Illinois Nazis. I hate Illinois Nazis.
In 1933, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis would label Kurt Schwitters as a degenerate artist. In 1937, he was wanted for questioning by the Gestapo. This is not a good situation. So he fled to Norway, leaving his wife back in Germany to take care of their properties. In 1940, the Nazis would invade Norway before he would move on and eventually be placed in an internment camp, which is basically a prison camp for individuals that were prisoners of war, enemy aliens, political prisoners, and people like that were usually connected in some way, shape, or form to an enemy during wartime. Being a German in Britain very much put him in that category. While in this internment camp, he would create over 200 works, despite the fact that art supplies were very, very short on hand. And in 1941, he would be released and moved to London, England. In England, he would meet with and had several opportunities to show his work, but had very little success. He began to experiment with things kind of outside the box, including this pre-pop art sort of style that would eventually catch on and become what we know as pop art. He did lots of different sorts of project-based things, one of which was called the Märzbrau. This was his home in Germany that he basically converted into a large-scale installation art project that was eventually destroyed after it was bombed by the Allied forces during World War II. While in Norway, he created Märzbrau II, which was destroyed by fire. And he attempted to make the third version of this along with his companion Edith Want T. Thomas, as he tried to convert this barn into an installation art project that he never was quite able to finish. The stress of all of these things had huge impacts on his health, and in 1948, he had already had 2 strokes and had just gotten his British citizenship, and the day after that, He died at the age of 60.
Now that's a bit of a problem.
What I truly appreciate about Kurt Schwitters is his ability to keep moving forward. Despite health issues, despite war, despite criticisms, and despite all of the other things that go on in his life, he keeps moving toward a place of creation. He always wants to experiment. He always wants to try something new. He's not done just because the works got destroyed. And I hope that we can take those sorts of ideas into the things that we're passionate about and just keep moving forward, finish the game, and always be striving toward that next piece of greatness. Scholars, I hope you enjoy that as much as I love being able to bring it to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. You have yourselves a great day.
I'll go last.